Hello, what's up? It's Silly City back with Hawaii Behind the Records episode number 21, and this week we're gonna look into Afro House. Alright, as some people may know, I don't really like Afro House that much, like personally, like just like the whole vibe and sonics, like I don't know, like I prefer to listen to different music, especially in the club in the morning hours. But yeah, I still feel like you can learn stuff from things you don't really like, so yeah, let's just go into it. Afro House is defined by its soulful rhythm and also its earthy percussions. It has a hypnotic groove and also like a deep emotional energy. Alright, let's look into the drums, and as always we start with the BPMs, the tempo of the track. And here you can have like the classic Afro House that's like 118 to 124 BPMs. You have like more the Afro tech and like melodic Afro House that's like 120 to 125 BPMs. And then there's also like the tribal organic Afro House that's like 110 to 120 BPMs. Before we look at the elements of the drums, let's just look at the groove, and here it's important that it's like laid back and hypnotic. So you can use the syncopation within the percussions and build the groove there, or just like build in some triplets to have some variation in it. So overall, the whole drum arrangement is less rigid and breathes a little bit more. That gives it also this like more tropical and like holiday vibe. If you look a little bit more specific on the kick, it's a deep and round kick, and it's also warm, has like the 4 on the floor beat, but it can also has a little bit of swing with its layered groove. So to the kick you can layer like a low tom or like just an analog sub that has like a little bit of a syncopation and groove in it. Afro House doesn't really use snare or claps, and if they are used they are like rim shots or natural recordings of a clap, and they're tucked into the groove. The close heads hit as always on the offbeat and can have some light swing. They can also be layered with a shaker or a kalimba. For like a rhythm variation you can use triplets, and if you want to use some effects you can just throw some delay on the hi-hats. The percussions are the heart of Afro House music, and they're often layered. So you have a conga that's layered together with some bongos or some djembes. If you want some rhythm variation, you can also use some triplets here, and you can also use the offbeat and put an accent there for some extra bounce. In the percussions, it's important that it's natural but still complex within the groove. And another thing you can use is like just some panning to the left or the right to have some stereo motion within the percussions. That's it already with the basic drums, so let's look at the first beat and see if it's really like an Afro House vibe or not. Alright, here we have the first basic beat, and here we just have a kick, a shaker, hi-hats, and then also some percussions. And then like I started adding in some plugins, like just like a bass or some noises that could fit. Yeah, I mean, it's vibey, but it's also a little bit much. And yeah, that's also the reason why I didn't pursue this track that much further. And yeah, let's look into some more theory. Let's look into some instruments and melodic elements. And we're gonna start here first with the bass. The bass is sub-heavy but simple, and it supports the groove. So it doesn't really support the melody, which means it can be just like a simple one-note rhythm that grooves together with the kick or the low tom. The bass in Afro House is an analog sine or square bass, or it can be a low marimba or a mallet pluck, and you can also sidechain the bass to the kick, so the kick comes through even cleaner. Other instruments you can add are the kalimba, the marimba and the xylophone, as well as some muted and clean e-guitar licks. You can also use some ethnical vocal samples and chants, and if you want you can also add some analog pads and some ambient synth layers. In Afro House, repetition is key, so you often have like short loops with some light variation. You can also use some call and response patterns, and the idea is not that you like layer sounds, but you layer vibes together. If you look at the keys and the chords, you can use the minor pentatonic scale. You can also use some extended and suspended chords, and the idea is just to create some rhythmic loops. If you look at the effects, you can use some field recordings like from a forest, bird noises, wind or village noises. You can add some vinyl hiss. You can also add some ambient pads that are subtly side-chained to the kick. You can add some reverse vocals, you can add reverb as always, you can add some crashes for some extra spice, and if you want you can also use some percussive fills and throw some reverb on it. In Afro House, you also use a lot of vocals that are like chopped African samples, and here they're used as an instrument, and you can add some reverb to it, or just use some filter sweeps to easily construct or deconstruct the whole groove. And that's also something that you can do with the percussions. The structure of Afro House tracks is also loop-based, which evolve throughout the track. As always, you start with the intro that's like 16 to 32 bars. Here you just have like the drums and the percussive elements that slowly fade in. Next up is the groove build, which is again like 16 to 32 bars. Here the bass line and some melodic layers come into the track. Next up is the main groove that is like 32 bars. Here the full loop comes in together with the vocals and the other instruments. Next up is a breakdown, which is 16 bars. Here the drums can drop out and also like just have the ambient pads together with the vocals. Next up is the second drop, or like the second main groove, which is 32 bars. Here everything returns and you can have some subtle energy boost with some variation in the percussions or just some changes in the effects. At last, as always, is the outro, which is like 16 to 32 bars. Here you gradually just fade out the elements or maybe just like have a percussion solo. Another important thing to consider when you structure an Afro House track is that you just add one element at a time, so it has a real subtle variation. Also, like the filter, delay and reverb automation is quite subtle and just here to add some emotion. In the end, the idea is that the breakdowns are not really hype moments, they're more like spiritual and relaxing. Alright, that's it already with the theory, so let's look into another beat that I've created, which is also gonna be the track for the Unfinished Beats Volume 2. Alright, let's look into another beat, and this is also the beat of the Unfinished Beats Volume 2 that's gonna be released this Saturday. It's really a simple track. I try to just like play a lot of percussion and elements like that in with like the drum kit, and then just like add some instruments that could fit. Those are instruments from like Ableton's built-in instruments, and just playing around a little bit. I don't know if it's really like an Afro House track. It's more like an Afro tech track. I don't know. But yeah, that's how the track's gonna be. So I hope you're gonna enjoy it. And then we're gonna see each other for the TLDR. Alright, TLDR. Afro House is in the range of 110 to 125 BPMs. The kick is round and has a 4 on the floor rhythm. If you use a clap or snare rim shot, you can tuck it within the groove. The closed head is always on the offbeat and it can be layered together with a shaker, and for some rhythmic variation you can add some triplets. The percussions are the heart of Afro House, so you have congas and bongos which are layered together on the groove. You can use some simple sub bass that grooves together with the kick, and some instruments you can add are the kalimba, the marimba, the xylophone. You can also add some vocal chops, and the key is that it's repetitive and only has like subtle change. If you use the chords, you can use the minor chords, which are extended or suspended, and for effects you can use like just simple field recordings or vinyl hiss, and to add another element you can use some percussive fills. The song structure is also based on loops which evolve throughout the track. Alright, this brings us to the end of this week's Hawaii Behind the Records. Next week we're gonna look at the different genre. It's gonna be jungle, and until then, stay healthy, have a nice week, enjoy the sun, and see you then. Bye!